Motor City Chronicles, Book 1, Transgressions, by Paul Inman and Patrick Ryerson. Read by Paul Inman, co-author of Motor City Chronicles, and Ageless. In production and for pre-order by Inkshares Publishing on inkshares.com. 0. Sunlight wouldn't pierce the darkness, smothering the decaying buildings that made the heart of Motor City for hours, making the cold streets desolate. An early season dusting of snow had left the roads slick, dangerous, and as vicious as death himself. A pale yellow Datsun B210 flew through a broken blinking red light at a dangerous speed. If anyone were out to see the old car blaze through the street, they would have heard screaming coming from the belly of the small metal beast. Screaming and the talk radio running ads for Men's Health. The car and its fleshy passengers swerved in and out of the opposite lane as the driver did all he could to keep control of the little beater. The woman lying on the worn fabric back seat screeched. "Are we close?" 10 minutes, baby," the man driving said. "Just try to relax. Breathe." "I am breathing," she spat. "You're doing great," the man said, straining to pull a hard right to compensate for the Datsun's sliding tires. The thin, rubber tires of the old car grabbed the pavement just as the man really began to think that they were going to crash into a mailbox on the curve. He breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed slightly. "It is an act of pure terrorism on the level that this country has never seen. The incidents of Pearl Harbor and the Twin Towers pale in comparison," the radio announcer continued. "But the collective United States citizens breathed a small sigh of relief today, as it has been reported that an attack on New Appleton has missed, or possibly been thwarted. Here's what the president had to say on the issue. We, as Americans, have endured a lot over the past 3 days. Wednesday saw an unbelievable amount of death, as this country has never seen, with the decimation of the City of Angels. Atomic weapons have never been fired at the U.S., not until this tragedy that has swept our great nation. Today, we dodge a bullet that would have seen another 10 billion lives ended or ruined. That's not going to happen on my watch, or ever again. As far as we know, the president has been on the move or in hiding since the catastrophe in the City of Angels that took the lives of 6 billion people. Click. The radio went silent as the woman let out another cry of agony. "Almost there," he said. The man glanced at the speedometer. It read somewhere between 75 and 80 miles per hour. He wore an ancient, dingy white tee that had seen its share of grease stains. The man himself was relatively young, no older than 27, and was clearly strained with the stress of the situation. His black hair was partially slicked back, his face shaven and thickly built. He turned, looking over his shoulder into the back of the automobile, where his wife was cradling her midsection. She reached a hand up, lightly tugging on his shirt, adding a new fresh stain of blood to go with the old greasy ones. Her voice was low, breathy. "I don't think I can," she huffed. "Something's not right. I'm not gonna make it." The last words were barely audible over the strain of the 4 cylinders underneath the hood of the aging economy car. The driver glanced over his shoulder, temporarily forgetting about the dangerous snowy road. He saw the blood on the right shoulder of his shirt and his wife's pale face beyond that in the back seat. "Like hell you're not," he said to himself, pushing the pedal to the floor, which put the needle well over 85. 1. The dream usually came after hard days in the shop. Stress could trigger it. Even talking about the old days set off the memories and gave his mind the fuel to ignite the flames of the subconscious. The dream was always the same, maybe some slight variations in minute details, but the end results didn't change. Ever. Cameron Blackwell, or Cam to most everyone, was sleeping in his upstairs room at St. Joseph's. The church orphanage had taken him in a long time ago. Truth is, this was the only home that the 17-year-old had ever known. Father Constantino has cared for the boy his entire life and was watching him grow into a respectable young man. Cam tossed on his twin mattress as the nightmare began to grip his mind. Sweat rolled into his closed eyes, going unnoticed as he began to talk in his sleep. The street light outside of St. Joseph's dimmed and brightened, illuminating the small calendar on Cam's desk, next to a picture of him and Johnny in front of Johnny's prize 1955 flatbed Chevrolet. The date was September 3rd, 2030, but in his mind, it was 5 years earlier. It was Johnny's screaming that brought Cam out of the office and into the main garage bay. Those shrieks echoed through the shimmering dream world around Cam as a 12-year-old version of himself came running into full view of Jonathan Woodward. "Oh my God, Johnny!" Cam shrieked, running toward the car in a dreamy slow motion. As he moved closer, he saw his friend's legs jutting out from underneath the old rusted Chevy. Johnny had been attempting to replace the transmission when the hydraulic lift failed, pinning his upper body between the beastly automobile and the cold concrete. Johnny yelled in unintelligible agony, not noticing the young boy. Cam grabbed the chrome bumper of the '57 Bel Air and yanked up with all his 12-year-old might. Nothing. He readjusted his grip and tried again, only this time his foot slipped in the growing pool of blood that flowed out from the gap where Johnny Woodward's lower torso and legs jutted out, like a bug squashed deep into the grill of the vehicle. "Johnny!" Cam screamed through the open hood. "Cam," Woodward responded weakly. "Get help, please." "Everyone's gone. I'm trying to lift it. I'm not going to leave you." Dream Cam began crying as he tried again to lift the close to 3,500-pound car. Cam heard Johnny weakly wheezing as the pressure compressed his lungs empty of air. He was dying, and Cam was watching helplessly. "Johnny!" Cam choked out the name through tears and stressful dribble. He redoubled his grip on the lower lip of the bumper, positioning his shoulders between the two wide-eyed headlights. Cam checked to make sure his sneakers weren't sliding in Johnny's blood and planted them firmly. The next part of the dream always happened incredibly slowly, unlike real life. Cam clenched his eyes tightly and set his jaw, sucking an impossibly deep breath through his nostrils, and began to grunt as he struggled with the almost 2-ton hunk of metal killing his friend beneath. Veins began to pop out of Cam's arms, neck and legs, glowing an eerie electric blue. He began to yell a guttural cry from the strain he was putting on his body. Cam's normally gray eyes shot open, revealing blackness with pupils outlined in silvery electric blue. The car began to move. Cam huffed as he moved the Bel Air inch by inch off of Johnny's collapsing chest and mashed right arm. The higher he lifted, the stronger he felt. Power seemed to roll through his skin like water flowing over a smooth rock. Cam continued to lift until the car was more than a foot higher than it needed to be and tossed the vehicle to the right of Johnny. Cam breathed hard and fast, gulping large chunks of air as he bent and helped Johnny to his feet. "We need to get you to the hospital." Cam's voice had an echoey, shimmering dream quality. "Your arm is bad." Johnny couldn't manage to get out many words. How did you?" He repeated them over and over. Cam helped him out of the garage, heading for the office where they could call an ambulance. They exited the garage to a horrific sight. As far as the men could see, there was no power, complete darkness. Not only darkness, but everything was dead. All the grass, trees, and bushes were a dead gray that was shriveled and lifeless. There were cars scattered around the street in both directions, crashed into poles, buildings, and anything in the way. Then they saw the bodies of the people inside of the cars, or lying on the sidewalks, chalky, lifeless beings as dead as the grass and shrubs. It was here that the dream world began to break down. Cam could feel it coming like always. He sucked the dead air of the dream world deep into his imaginary lungs and screamed. "They're all dead!" Cam screamed as the streetlight outside of his window winked out. He shot up into a sitting position with his long dark hair hanging over his eyes that popped open as if they had never been closed in slumber. After a second of disorientation, he realized that he was sitting on his twin bed in St. Joseph's. He shuddered, rubbing his sweat-soaked face hard with his trembling hands. Cam began to cry, like every other time the dream came. You have been listening to Motor City Chronicles, Book 1, Transgressions, by Paul Inman and Patrick Ryerson. If you like what you've heard, please go to inkshares.com and pre-order